Welcome to Artist Projects, Responding to Racial Injustice. Um, what a topic as I started out this afternoon, but I'm like filled with smiles because I'm loving seeing all these three incredible people, humans, artists, and the wonderful, powerful work they're doing. So I'm happy around such challenging topics. So we have Fatu Berry with us from Philadelphia, and Lana Hunter is here from St. Paul, Minnesota. And we have Narciso Martinez, and I think from Long Beach, California, right, Narciso? Yes, can he? Oh, he has a delay. I got to remember that. So, how about we just start off today? I would like to ask each of you to respond. I mean, right off the bat, how are you? What's true for you today? Right now, in this moment, what's true for you today? Whoever would like to start.
Yeah, I mean, I can start. I think, Fatu here, I think for me, it's the maintaining, it's the thinking ahead. Yeah, that's true for me. I'm thinking ahead today. Of course, coming off of a really interesting night yesterday. Just really just trying to figure out what is next. For me specifically, I think as a Black woman in my own experiences, like what's next? That's where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, what's next? Thank you. Someone else, what's true for you today, right now?
This is Lana Hunter, and I think what's true for me today is the opportunity and the understanding that we are the incarnate of our ancestors' love and understanding and truth tellers to be able to speak and live all of the love that they left for us.
Ah, you're gonna make me cry. Yes, thank you for bringing that into this space. Narciso.
Oh, hey everybody. Yeah, well, I know like it's probably gonna be never be normal again, but I'm just trying to get by through to a normality, if we can call it that. Just like staying in the studio and just keep working and sharing experiences. Hopefully that will connect with other different people that are sort of like in the same page. I think that's, I don't know. I feel like it's happening.
You feel like you're finding some kind of a homeostasis or a normal vibe again?
Right. But I feel like it is in terms of sharing the same harshness, I guess, that I'm going, like I'm not alone, I feel like.
That's right. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, Jinx, you owe me a Coke, Lana. So, before we get to sharing, and we'll get to that really soon because I want everybody to see all the stuff that you're doing. What about, how did you all know that you are called to do this work? Like in the work that you're doing right now that we're focusing on, how did you know you were going to commit to that? What was it like? Where was it? How did you feel?
How did I know? I didn't know. Honestly, when I started because I really like drawing. I really like painting. I've been doing that since I was a kid. And I guess if we have to like compress everything, I realized that I was going to do this when after years of working in the fields, because I work in the fields, but after years of working in the fields, at one point, because of research from school, I realized that I was part of this community that was being underrepresented, and as I learned that I can speak for that group in my art, excuse me, through my art or through drawing, I realized that I was part of that same group, and that's when I I realized that this is what I needed to do all along. And so I keep doing the same, I keep doing drawings within the same ideology that I speak out for people who sometimes they can't, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You realized you were a part of the same group. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So either one of you, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I've always been someone I think who's been a very creative person, has leaned into creativity. But in terms of the work that I'm doing right now, I think just in seeing creating as a vehicle for so many things, I think that's when I realized that, you know, this is the work that I want to do. I think my understanding of art, my understanding of creation looked very differently, like growing up and even a couple of years ago. And it's not till recently that I've had this awakening of like, this is a tool, this is a gift. So I think for me, it's been that. It's been realizing like what a blessing it is to be able to create. And then to use that as well to put something back into the world that actually helps to change, whether it be something small or something big, but it has the ability to change. That's when I realized, all right, this is it. This is the sweet spot of, you know, all the things that speak to my soul that I also have in my wheelhouse to do.
Right. I just took a picture of y'all. Fatu is one of my former students, so I feel like her mama, I'm a proud mama moment where I had that I have to send it to others and say, look at my baby, one of my babies here. Anyway, sorry, Lana, when did you know that in particular with this?
Well, I think for me, of course, everything comes from, you know, the understanding that what is above is so below, right? So that understanding that everything that we are in that spiritual realm and that understanding of, you know, for our culture, for the Dakota people, we believe that we come from the Star Nation. So in that way, what is shared with us in that light and love, we have to bring that to this earth below so that we reflect back to our ancestors and those star people. So I think it's been a calling for a long time for not just me, but for our people to be able to step forward, especially in light of, you know, historical trauma and the understanding of adverse childhood experiences and the understanding of, you know, policies that continue to keep us on the outside. So I think for me, I think of myself as a storyteller weaver, where I can bring together art with truth-telling, policy, and justice, and hopefully arrive at that with the understanding that we do that together. So I like what Narcisse said about we are not alone. We are in this together, Black, white, Native, you know, everybody together, indigenous of this earth.
Wow, thank you. I love that, what you're saying about, you said mirroring the stars. Can you say that again? It was so beautiful. I got it. It made my...
Sure, it's actually on my shirt.
Ah!
So you can see there's a teepee. So
Yes.
the teepee, and the teepee is reflected below. So, and then this is the earth, right? These are the stars and the ancestors that come with that knowledge and the understanding that they bring to us here. We just have to be able to receive that. And to be able to receive that, we have to be able to clear away that which is not ours to carry in this life.
Clear away. Yeah. Oh.
So as above, so below.
That's what it was. As above, so below. Wow. I'm writing this down. I can't lose that one. I mean, I feel that, but I love that you've articulated that so beautifully. Important messages is that all humans on the planet, I think, could be inspired by and practice more, and who knows where we would all be. So, I mean, Lana, with that, could you go ahead and start your share of the work and show us all the things that you have been focused on these days? And while you're pulling it up, I'll say to the group, so these three people represent really important topics to me that I've always cared about since a kid. And Lana is going to be talking about Indigenous women, and Narciso talking about our food pathways and those who bring food to us. My God. And Fatu about Black lives mattering, always have mattered. So I'm really grateful for all of them to be here. So whenever you're ready, and if we need to help you in any way, you just holler and we'll do our best to support you there.
So hopefully I can get it up here. So
Yes.
part of the work that I'm able to do, and I get the honor and privilege to be able to speak on behalf of our Indigenous First Nations people of this land. And unfortunately, with that comes the colonial, patriarchal kind of domination of our this Western way of thinking. Unfortunately, that's not the way many of us think, and that's not how many of us operate. So for us, it's connected to the land, it's connected to above. We honor the earth, we honor our women. We see them as the female beings of this earth. So water is connected to the women, women are sacred, the earth is sacred. So all of those things come from the feminine, right? The women. And so in that, we understand that they're all connected. We're all connected. So today I'm going to talk about the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And this is really a movement of art, love, and justice. So bringing them in a collaborative way, not just with our people, but with our allies, hand in hand. And we really see that, no matter who it is that's oppressed. Here in Minneapolis, we saw the George Floyd protests that occurred. And, Minneapolis has been the bed of many movements, including the American Indian movement. And so many of our understanding and ways of speaking truth to injustice, has come right here from this land, the land of my people, the Dakota people. So I'm going to speak about our missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So this is just a snapshot of 1 year, 2016, 5,712 cases were logged into the Department of Justice NAMUS program. And with that understanding, that is just 1 year. We make up 1% of the population in the United States. So for us to know and understand that 5,000 in 1 year, that's an entire, state of Arizona, every reservation. That's the entire, state of, entire reservation completely gone, missing or murdered. Murder is the third cause of violence against American Indian and Native women. So we're 10 times more likely to be murdered than any other race. And the challenges and barriers for families are really accessing data, understanding that they want to put this data into these national databases so that they can find their loved ones, whether they're missing, have been missing, but they lack that ability within tribal law enforcement, or they don't have access to those critical databases that could save their lives. Unfortunately, many of the missing women do come up murdered. And, for us, this crisis is in urban areas, it's in tribal reservations, it's in Canada, it's here on this continent in what you call the United States of America, still Indian country. And for us, to understand that these are policies and practices that we, and Miss Mitzi, you and I talked about this, but we disappear not once, but 3 times in the life, real life, in the media, and in the data. So this is really a story about how we arrive at that information and to speak to that through art. So we worked on the Red Dress Project, and this was a project that started in Canada by a Métis artist, Jamie Black. And she wanted to have an expression of her grief and her pain and her connectedness to Indigenous women, not just the Indigenous women who are here breathing on this earth, but those who have gone missing. And so in 2011, she put up the Red Dress Project. And so you'll see these red dresses representing those that are missing, those that are murdered. You know, these are an expression of that love, right? And that movement. So we in Minnesota worked on creating these red dresses around the city, around the state. And so we always believe in community organizing. So we pulled in folks to sew the dresses, to put them together, and ultimately hang them around the city during the Super Bowl. Because we believe that the Super Bowl was not just a representative of kind of that dominant culture, but what that represents to us is sex trafficked victims who get brought in to service those who have wealth, who have power. And so at that point, you know, many of them do go missing. Many of them do end up murdered. Many of them do end up, you know, addicted to substance use disorder. So for us, this is really a time not to say thank you for coming to Minneapolis for your Super Bowl, but really the exploitation and what it represents to our communities. So this was during the Super Bowl. We hung these red dresses, the U.S. Bank Stadium, you know, in the background with the dresses.
I love that.
Yeah.
Amazing that they're right there. Ooh.
You know, you get people asking why those are there, and so every dress came with a card that said "Bring me home," and it talked about the sex trafficked victims. It talked about the missing and murdered Indigenous women. And it said, if you find this dress, please bring me back to Two Rivers Gallery at the Minneapolis American Indian Center. So all of our dresses were returned that we placed around the city. And it was very powerful. And so by many people who are not from our community. So you'll see that we displayed signs. This is actually me at the Super Bowl. And that feeling of we're always looking. We're always trying to find our sisters to bring them home. So at the same time, we also connected to the Quilt Project. 50% of Native women experience violence throughout their childhood. And I would say probably 1 out of every 2 Native women experience sexual assault. And so this was in conjunction with the Supreme Court hearing, as well as the Super Bowl. So it was kind of built on this momentum of creating these quilt squares that then moved to a larger movement in Washington, D.C. that says you are not alone, right? That's Narciso said that, you know, and for sexual assault victims, we want them to know they are not alone. So many of the quilt squares that you see displayed were created by our community members during this time of hanging the red dresses, because we believe in healing, right? We believe in ultimately transforming that grief, that pain, that hurt, that rage, that anger, that everything that we feel into an expression of love. And there's no higher expression of love than art. And so for us, that brings us to the Creator. I was also involved with putting together a walk that was the Dakota Prayer and Healing Walk. And so you'll see this 20-foot Dakota woman. So here in the state of Minnesota, we were forever removed from our homelands in 1862. And so we were force marched 400 miles. So 1,500 Native women and children were imprisoned at Fort Snelling, and 300 of them died there. With no food. Many of them had to subject themselves to being used in prostitution to even eat. And so this was in the dead of winter in Minnesota. And so we created this large display. Gracie Horn, a Dakota artist, created this to commemorate the 1,500 who were force marched, and also to honor the 38 Dakota men that were hung in a mass hanging in Mankato, Minnesota on December 26, 1862. So you'll see that it actually says colonial genocide of Indigenous women since 1862. This was actually one of the signs that one of the Dakota women brought to the hanging. And this was at least for us, our first protest. So this is the Dakota statue with us coming in on horseback. We believe horses are sacred. We believe that horses bring healing. We believe that they connect all 6 directions, the north, the south, the east, the west, the sky, and the earth. So they can face 6 directions at one time when you put a man or a woman on top of them. So they bring us healing. And so this was our kind of expression of that love, and to speak truth to power. That you know, we were considered dead and gone, but we were, as we say, seeds, right? And we come back to claim that justice for our women, our children, our men, our indigenous, you know, our ancestors. So this is another opportunity for us to heal, is to take that grief and pain and transmit it into positive energy, to put it back into Mother Earth. So that's our goal, right, in our lives, is to be able to protect Mother Earth no matter what. And so the missing, murdered Indigenous women represents the that fragmentation, that digging for oil, the extraction, the hurt, the pain, the suffering that we put Mother Earth through these large global companies of oil and gas. You know, Mother Earth is plentiful, but at some point she has to heal. And so for us, that's our life purpose, is to be able to heal so that we can put that back into the earth. So this is just a couple of the displays that are around the country. This is actually an artist, Cherokee artist, Shan Gosshorn. So each one of these that you see displayed were cut out from newspaper clippings about the 306 missing and murdered Indigenous women, and she wove them into a basket with statistical information. And this is actually a red river, a river of blood. And so for her to kind of put that love and attention, you know, that was just another way of our expression to talk about the injustice. This is in Alaska. This is a large cuspit. So many of the Yupik and Inupiaq women wear this cuspit, and so it displays 200 missing, murdered Indigenous women in Alaska that they have either not found or have been found murdered. And then this is an artist, Terry McHugh. This is, you know, I think the representation, you know, he's 72 years old, he's Ojibwe, he's from Alberta, Canada. He has 16 of these. So this is just one of 16. There's a link that you can find his work at the end of this PowerPoint. But this is the representation of, you know, our women being dead and people walking by and not caring. And you can see the red dresses in the background. So, you know, telling that story through art, telling that story of the colonial kind of patriarchy that continues to harm our women, but continues to harm the earth. And, you know, part of our movement is always towards policy. And I just love this picture of this elder. She spoke at the, you know, she's 99, and she spoke justice, truth to power, you know, and for her to have that fight to continue at 99 years old, you know, it was that day in Mankato where the 38 men were hung. It was probably, you know, 10 below zero, and you can see her power, her fierceness, and that is the love, right? That is the love of our ancestors. That's the love of our people, our elders, our youth. And so this is a call for justice. And this is Savannah, who was murdered in Fargo, North Dakota in 2017. She actually had her baby ripped from her womb. And so this is, you know, for us to understand that that level of violence exists against our women, to understand that that level of sexual assault, murder, genocide, that's all connected to patriarchy, racism, sexism. And so that this is the ultimate expression of that. So right now there's a bill that is waiting for President Trump to sign, but it takes the opportunity to develop guidelines for responding to cases of missing, murdered Indigenous women, because if you understand jurisdiction, you know, you're operating within tribal, federal, state, county jurisdictions, and so that data may never be entered. Those women will forever be lost. And so what they're looking at is how do we coordinate that information together. So this is Savannah's Act in her honor, her memory. And that's actually her daughter who they were able to apprehend the murderers, and her daughter is now being raised with her partner. So that's her daughter in that picture. And these are additional information about the movement, policy, anything you want to read. There's actually the resources, statistical and data information that was collected from 71 cities around the United States. And then the Indigenous Warrior Women song, which I'll sing for us at the end. So thank you.
Wow. Lana, thank you so much for all of this. Can you just really, and I hate to say quickly, we're just stuck on this system and time, literally on this system will cut us off. But when you talked about the data and you talked about being invisible and disappearing 3 times, what is, I don't know if people realize this about, can you explain to us about why data is not available? It makes sense to me about that being on the sovereign nation versus media versus, you know, the US media, blah, blah, blah. Please explain that so people get why, one of the reasons that we are not able to recover and to track, please.
So, you know, many of the data systems, whether it's the national, you know, NCIS, you know, all of the shows that you get to see on TV, NCIS, all of the, you know, Law and Order, and, you know, they have these access to data systems. You have to be recognized in that state and or federally as a certified law enforcement official to be able to enter that data. So many of our tribal communities or reservations are tribal law enforcement officers that do not have that credentialing. And additionally, the capacity is to be able to have access to those actual systems themselves, the computer, the input, the technology, let alone the broadband. Many of our tribal communities don't have access to broadband, to the internet. And so we're really talking about, you know, being left out 3 times, right? From life, from the data, and from just in general being invisible. And so I think for us, the understanding that those jurisdictional responses are not there because they're not coordinated. We're not seen as victims. We're not seen as a people. We're not seen as a race, just like this earth is not seen as, you know, who she is, what she represents, what she gives to us, the life bringing. You know, I respect, you know, Narciso and the work that you do. You know how rich and plentiful Mother Earth is, but not everyone respects her in that way. And so we understand that within that system, we disappear.
Thank you for clarifying that and bringing more of the details to our attention.
Yay, awesome. Well, first, I am just like in awe, Lana. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm like inspired or sitting here and just made me think so much more about this new space that I find myself in. So I really do want to thank you for holding space to share that with us and just like, wow. So I just wanted to make sure that I held some time to let you know that. So before I start and share my work, I think something that's really important to me is to just share these 3 values that I have found pretty much lead anything and everything that I do. And this is kind of rooted in my own experiences and the life that I've lived. So one, I've always been a creative person, whether or not I acknowledged it or was pushed towards it. It's something that's always lived in me. And it's something that I like to share because it really is a driving force. Culture, so important. I am not only an immigrant, I'm also first generation. So there's a lot embedded in culture that finds itself into just my life and leaning, you know, almost like the theory of like Sankofa, to know where you're going, you have to know where you've been. That is a big part of just my process of like being here, but also understanding like what the ancestors have been through, what my own family has been through, like what have we experienced in our like our lineage that has brought me here, and that has made me equipped to do the work that I do. And also communication, because by trade, I went to school for PR and marketing. So communication and just looking at how that's such a barrier for everyone to understand each other. If you can't speak the same language, sometimes it's hard to identify, and realizing that the ability to communicate is such a core just part of how we do this work and how we move forward in the world. So those three things also influenced the work that I'm going to share and the project that I'm going to share, because it was really at the root of why I decided to do what I decided to do. All right, let me see if I can. So my project is actually an apparel design. So it's a little bit more, I guess it's not traditionally when you think of art, because even myself, as I've expressed, I'm in this new season of really finding my place as an artist, because for so long I never considered myself an artist. I knew that I could create, but there was this standard of art that I thought, I have to encompass these technical skills in order to consider myself an artist. And through doing this, producing this shirt, and also a lot of the other projects I'm working on, I've realized that like, that's not fair. It's not fair to me. It's not fair to everybody in the world who has something to create. And so I'm walking into this role of using art as a vehicle for social good and for social change. This project was actually a BL, Black Lives Matter fundraising tea in response to the murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. My lived experiences are that of a Black person, of a Black woman. One of my earliest memories in, just realizing what it meant to be Black in America was the murder of Amadou Diallo. And that hit home because he was a Guinean immigrant like myself, like my sister, like my mother. And it was like, wow, like this is how I could potentially be perceived in this world. So police brutality, racial injustice, though the fight for racial equity has always been something that I have experienced, specifically with this shirt, it just came from a place of trying to figure out what role I played in this larger fight, in this larger just goal to get to a better place. And realizing, there's this ecosystem that they talk about in social justice, that everybody has a role. You have the storytellers, you have the creators, you have the organizers, everyone plays a role. And it wasn't till this shirt that I realized the role that I played in this larger ecosystem. And it was that of creating something that would not only help, but would spark conversation, especially in an industry that capitalizes off of the murder of Black bodies. All of the time. We saw it with Breonna Taylor. She was in every magazine. People were making memes about her, were making, even merchandise that was not aimed at fundraising. So myself and my partner, we really sat down and we were like, what can we do? How do we occupy a space that doesn't take away from the people that are already organizing and doing the work at the front lines, but helps to support them and helps to amplify this idea, and then not even this idea, the fact that Black lives matter. And specifically for us, it was the idea that Black life matters. Black people should not be considered, important, or contributions like Black after we pass away, after we're murdered. It should be in the present, when we are here, when we are giving. So kind of just having this message through this shirt, and even in the design of the shirt. For me, as you notice, the words start to warp, and it was a reflection of how I was feeling at the time of consistently hearing Black Lives Matter, but not seeing enough action and not seeing the proof that Black life does matter to people. So the words do that melting, because it's like the noise that I was experiencing, and the noise that I know that many other people were experiencing as well. And through this shirt, we were actually able to raise more than $13,000 to donate to organizations at the front lines of racial injustice. So Black Visions Collective, George Floyd's Memorial Fund, Black Women Speak, and Black Immigrant Collective are all organizations that we're actively donating through ticket sales. And it was a little bit, of a moment where I didn't realize how much power I had in creating until I started to see how people were responding to this. Not only were we able to raise this much money, but over 1,000 people have purchased this shirt to date. And orders still keep coming in, and everything that we make is being donated. But to have people who reach out and say, like, being able to have access to this shirt, not knowing what to do, not knowing what to say, but wanting to contribute, wanting to start somewhere, and being able to purchase a shirt that all of the proceeds went to help these organizations while also making a statement has been something that's really been awakening for me. We were, New York Mag featured it, Philly Voice, Fox News, KWI Radio. So we've got a lot of amplification about this shirt. And it was just so interesting to see how something that a person can create can have such a lasting impact, that can call people to take action. And so it got me thinking about, how do we use creativity and art as a vehicle for social change? How do we look at art? How do we look at what we create through the lens of this is meant to help, push a narrative forward that's meant for the betterment of everyone, or this is meant to financially support the organizations and the people that are at the front lines. And it sparked so much conversation about the role of an artist and the role of a creator for me. And it really just, it allowed me to land on this idea of being a creativist, the idea that you can be a creator, but you can also be an activist, and you can blend those two things together. And this is not new, this is not a new thing that I came up with. It has been there, but to give it a name for myself, and to then be able to explain this to other friends who are also artists and creators, and to really push people to use their art and to use their talents, their gifts that the universe and that were given to us to help other people.
I love that creativist.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And I know it has different terms, different meanings for different people, but for me, when people ask me what I do now, who I am, I lead with, I'm a creativist. I am creating content, I'm creating platforms, I'm creating products that are meant to help others, that are meant to make the world a better place. That's my contribution to this world, for everything that it's given me. That's my return to it.
I gotta interrupt you because they're gonna cut
no
us.
worries. I know, because I'm
yeah, because we gotta get Narciso's stuff up.
Yeah. So
Last
all that
one.
to say, art and creating has definitely been a vessel for me to really be able to make meaningful impact, and to use it as a form of activism, and to walk boldly into helping this world.
Thank you. I love that creativist and money that you raised. You want to step out of screen share, Narciso? We're gonna pull yours up for you, Narciso, and we're gonna go right to your work if you can show us right away.
I'm gonna pull it up for everybody, and Narciso, you can just tell me when to page forward in your presentation.
Yeah, if you just give him a signal.
Give me one moment.
Okay.
Can all of you see that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Can we all hear me? All right. Yeah. So I think two things that I'm going to say real quick about how this series of work started is by pointing out, or maybe questioning it, why is it on cardboard, and why farm workers? First of all, I work in the fields from 2009 to 2018 during my college years. And this is when I started working in the fields and experiencing the life of the farm workers because of research. And that's what I mentioned before. Where is it that that's when I realized that I was part of this community and that I could transmit these images, these stories, these misfortunes, sometimes unfairness, I would say unfairness of the system that we were all in the fields will experiencing. The idea of representing farm workers. The whole idea was to really highlight farm workers, just to represent them on a platform and honor them as people who contribute to the nation, really. And so I started working on cardboard boxes because of school, really. School pushed me to experiment what else is out there to use as a support, because given that oil painting was so traditional and all my critiques was really harsh, and at one point I did a bunch of studies on cardboard. At one point I didn't have money for materials, and also I experienced artwork outside of school that was made on cardboard. And so that all inspired me to create works on cardboard. There was a point where I stopped painting because my critiques were a little bit harsh, and so I went back to which was painting or drawing on cardboard. I saw this cardboard box at Costco. I picked it up. It then landed in my studio. And during that winter break, when I stopped painting, I did this drawing of a banana man on a banana box. And that's when it all started. I presented it to my class, and the result was really interesting. The focus was more, it wasn't as general as before. It had more openness for conversation by overlapping the figures with the labels of the boxes, no, and I didn't have to worry about bringing into other conversations. So this is one of the first pieces that I did. I was doing a research on how much farm workers were represented in art during the 30s and 40s and 50s. Turns out not a lot, but I found this series of posters depicting these beautiful landscapes of orchards with people and beautiful women carrying these bouquets of oranges. So I decided to contrast that with the actual farm workers. The image on my right, it's an actual family I met. And while I was doing that, I was thinking of all the risks that farm workers to go through, like falling from the ladder, the pesticides, residues on the trees, and so I decided to convert this nice-looking lady into like a rather sinister character that represents the danger. We can go to the next image, and continuing with the tradition of experimenting on boxes. I did this sculpture. Are we looking at the sculpture image now?
Yes, we are. It's there.
Okay. All right. So it was all personal experiences, but at this point, I was sort of like going a little bit political when the now president was campaigning for his presidency, and he made all these negative comments about Latino people. I wanted to create a piece that would show the contribution of the Latinx community. In this case, because I was working in the fields, this was the contribution that I was experiencing. So I created this sculpture where these workers are emptying really the produce of their labor into this bounty of produce. That's when I introduced the element of collage into these boxes. We can go to the next piece, and I can't remember what the next piece is. Okay, so yeah, I also work
These are the
in the printmaking department. Right, I also work in the printmaking department, and I was doing this series of portraits of farm workers with masks or bandanas on their faces, and really this idea of because I started printing them on regular paper, people were asking why I was representing gangsters or terrorists. So I had to sort of like come out with the idea of contextualize these portraits by printing them on produce boxes. I did some other experimentations with it. I printed them on Duralar and matte Duralar, and mount those portraits um, on collage. I ripped off a bunch of different. We can go to the next one. I ripped out a bunch of and sort of like the same idea, right, of creating this conversation between the black and white images of farm workers with the colorful labels that comes on the boxes. One thing I want to say about these portraits that it kind of made me sad is while I was working in the fields, I remember a lot of these workers get rid of their bandanas or their masks because it's easier to pick the fruit. It's easier to run up and down the ladder and to fill out more buckets in order to make more money. And exposing themselves in this way to harsh weather conditions and to the pesticide residues that are found in the trees. We can go to the next image. And it's really it was like a really kind of sad experience, but that's what I wanted to touch on this series. I'm not sure what's the next one is. We can go to the next one, and
this is your charcoal
unfolding. Right, philosophy in the fields is like a really philosophy in the fields was really how do we get out of here? How do we better ourselves? And I decided to make a sort of like a collage of images about my own experiences that goes from like working in the fields, picking asparagus, picking fruits, and the main part of this drawing is the circle of people having lunch and discussing, having a engaging conversations. How can we get out of here? Of course, from my own experiences was through education, and I would always encourage my coworkers to go to school and encourage their kids to go to school at the end of the day, because sometimes it's really hard to go back as an adult, but certainly encourage their kids to go back to school. And now we can go to the next image with the triptych. I made a triptych for my thesis exhibition at CSULB back in 2018, where I didn't want to end up the show by just showing what life in the fields was like, but also to sort of like pitched in a solution. You know? Like I'm sure there are many solutions, but I also wanted to pitch in with a solution based on my own experience. And I also to subvert some of the historical portraiture that has been done by white European artists of rich people, wealthy people. And I also, at the same time, wanted to bring out this idea of honoring women, because throughout history, obviously they have been repressed. We don't need to dig in so deep into the history to know that. And I have nephews, but I have also a bunch of nieces, and I have a mom and aunt. So this represents a young female farm worker in the fields. This is a portrait of my mom, who still like lives in this indigenous community back in Oaxaca. And if it's hard to see it, but all the things that she's holding on are products that that we grew up with, that many times they are not even planted. We go out and hunt them and eat them, and that's how we survived. And I was sort of like speaking for the way I grew back in my indigenous community back in Oaxaca, and the way we live now, sort of like overlapping this idea of farm work, of farm labor in Oaxaca and farm labor in the United States as in this corporate climate. And so the third image is about this young female that represents so many others that I met in the fields who, while still in high school, they worked in the fields and later on go to college and graduate. This young lady I met in the fields, she went on to graduate from the University of Washington in Seattle from the School of Social Public Health, actually. And you see the symbol somewhere on the table of the School of Public Health. And so it made me so proud that seeing these younger generations going, moving on, going to college, getting college degrees and going back and giving back to the community. She works for an organization that now teaches farm workers and also managers from orchards to how deal with people, since so many times they are really aggressive, they really take advantage of the workers by mistreating them, and really, really speaks for how we can achieve if we commit. We can move on to the next image. If we have another one.
Narciso, can we get to the one that's a display that, yes, this one, and this will have to be the closing one, and you have like, I apologize, about 30 seconds to talk about this one. And Matt, there's 2 slides to this, so.
Yeah, I think I could say there's 2 things maybe. I want to honor women. That's why it's a woman, female worker on the center. And the pattern that it's all around, it's from the dollar bill, which I want to represent the contribution to the economy to the United States. And also all the colorful images that are on the bottom are actually paintings of produce that speaks for the spectacularization of the produce that we see in our grocery stores.
Did you all see that? The perfect produce, the way he's playing with that idea and the dollar bill. I love your work. I want it to be in every grocery store.
Yes.
Ralph, Kroger's. I don't know what you have in Minnesota. It needs to be in the front door.
Yes. Yes.
So, yes. Right? So I would like to, in closing, and anybody who wants to stay, there's a lot to be said. But as we talked about the anger and rage and tears that come up, Lana said to me, she stays with it because we fight in the spirit world, and ceremony is part of that, and you can stay as long as you want. And even if it's all 4 of us, we appreciate your song. And I'm so grateful for all of you. Take it away.
Yes.
Lana.
Thank you. So I just want to say that, you know, my heart, my oppression is linked with you, Narciso, with Fatu, Mitzi. All of us are linked together in that oppression and that fight against injustice, but it's also linked in that healing and love, right? The love of our ancestors and who we are in that ceremony. And this way, art, Narciso, Fatu, we transform, right, lives, because creation, art is the highest expression of love, right?
Woo!
Closest to the creator. So I want to honor our voices as Indigenous women, as women, and end with a song that you can find at the end of my presentation, but it's the Indigenous Women's Warrior Song. Yahio, way, Yahio, way, Yahio, Yahio, way, Yahio, Yahio, way, Yahio. And with that, we call forth all of our ancestors, the universe, the spirit guides of pure light and love. And thank you for this. Thank you for having us here.
Woo, amen. Yes, hallelujah. I don't know what else we could say. And I'm so grateful for everybody that stayed. And all their information and way to contact them will be in the news feed. I'm grateful to Matt for assisting us. And we made t-shirts in your honor, inspiration. And Lana's t-shirt was there. I hope for our joy being equitable for all peoples. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peace.